After hitting rock bottom last season, the reporter from The Athletic and the Martins decided to have a sit-down with the Manchester United CEO to discuss all things Manchester United and what is going to happen, what is to come in the future, what are the plans to take Manchester United back. Because you have to understand, we had the worst season in over 50 years last season, with 38 games having only 42 points. I've not seen Manchester United in all my time as a supporter and being alive, Manchester United finishing so poor in the season. So on this video, we are going to be going through the interview between Andy Mitten of The Athletic and also our own CEO Omar Berrada. Now, before I go into the interview, I'm going to give an overview of who Omar Berrada is. Of course, he was employed during when Ineos took over Manchester United. He's been in the club for over a year now. Before that, he formerly worked for Manchester City, occupying the position of the Chief Football Operations Officer for Manchester City. And he was acquired when Ineos took over the club. So obviously, he has not been in Manchester United for quite a long time. Now I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the points of the interview. He said, "I sit here today and I'm actually very optimistic and quite positive about what's ahead. Of course, we need to get a lot of decisions right and we will make mistakes. There is no doubt we'll try to minimize those. But what we want is to build something that's sustainable for the long term." You have to understand that they came into Manchester United and we have been complaining that Manchester United have been a disaster for the quite longest under the Glazer reign. Now what he's trying to make us understand is, we had a poor season last, but we cannot have a season that is worse than the one that we have just had. I know it was poor and a lot of people are going to say, Ineos could have done much better. Yeah, maybe they could have, but it didn't happen that way. We had one of the worst seasons in our history, but what's most important now is that we have to look into the future with an optimistic view, and that is what he's just trying to say in that point. I also went ahead to talk about Cunha because obviously Cunha is the first signing, and this interview was done after the signing of Cunha. He said about Cunha, he's a player that I think fans are going to love. We can talk about his tactical abilities and he can play in 3 different positions. He's a playmaking, attacking midfielder. He can score goals. He can make assists. I think he is going to lift people off their seats. He's going to be a bit of swagger about him that people are going to really like. Dare I say, Eric Cantona-esque. Now, if you have seen the interview Cunha made, his first interview for Manchester United, you would understand what Omar Berrada is quite saying here. That Cunha is a Cantona-esque kind of signing, a Cantona type of player, a player with a big player per se, a player that wants to, get into the responsibility and deliver. Because you have to understand that was what happened during Cantona time in Manchester United. He came into the club when we're not doing so good, but his leadership and the kind of player, his character was what pushed Manchester United into winning major trophies. When Sir Alex Ferguson signed him, he was a player with big character coming from France already, and that is what Omar Berrada is saying. This is a Cantona-esque kind of signing. This is a signing, a statement signing. This is a signing that is going to lift the fans off their seat. Of course, we have so much Marcus Cunha already in Wolverhampton. He has already been doing that. He plays for the Brazilian national team, playing from Wolverhampton. So you have to understand, he's a class player already. And yes, he is a Cantona type signing. And he went further to say, we have taken out the short-term pain in this season. But as of this summer, the worst bit is going to be behind us. We have settled the management team. We would have settled the coaching team with the tactical team around them. And on the football side, there is a clear idea of what we want to do, what players we want to get, how we want to see the team playing, how we are going to integrate academy players, how we are going to go and invest in future talent. I think he's right for what he just said. I think Manchester United cannot be as worse as we were this season, next season. So he's right by saying the worst is already behind us. And you have to understand, when they took over this team, they did not have time to prepare for the first summer window they had. And he's saying on this part that Now the team, the backroom team, the tactical, the management, meaning the CEO, the sporting director in Wilcox now giving the position, Jason Wilcox giving the position of the sporting director, himself settling in as a CEO, another position in the management that have, they got into the job, they were just a few weeks into the job, transfer window hit, and it was different, and it's going to be different now that they have had months in the job. They have obviously had to settle into their different positions. They have seen the problem that's in Manchester United. They have made their future projections or players in the future and the system they are going to go forward with. And this part is just going to make us understand that they are feeling way better than they were when they first took the job. And I quite understand what that means, and I also feel that way for them, because the pressure has always been on them since they took over. Yes, we finished 15th, but the season is over. Now they can look forward with the experience they got from last season to deliver better this new season. He's saying they already have plans for the academy, they have plans for the type of player they're going to sign in the future. They are well settled into to understand this is the problem in Manchester. This is what the academy needs. This is what this team needs in the next 2 years. He's saying they know the problem right now better than they did months ago when they first took over Manchester United, which is in hindsight a really good thing for Manchester United going forward. When asked about the manager, he said, "We saw it as an investment for the following season because we were going to give time to Ruben to get to know the squad, the club, the Premier League. So by the time that we got to now, June 2025, we would have had all the discussions about what does the squad need, the 2 or 3 years plan to get to the squad that is capable of winning the Premier League." And I felt the same way too when Ruben Amorim was signed. A lot of people would have, prepared, even the manager preferred to have come at the end of the season. But for me, I thought this point he's making now about them planning with the manager in the job is more like when you are learning the job inside the job. It's different from being taught in probably in a theory basic and then you are taken to the practical. People that learn going into the job directly are mostly better at it because they get to learn, facing troubles and all that. That was what happened this season. Ruben Amorim coming at the middle of the season, it seemed like trouble at the point of the time it was happening. When you live through the experience, it was tough for Manchester United fans, but I knew going into the future it would be a good decision because think about him now. Now he knows Rashford. Think about him. Now he knows Garnacho. Now we know we're not going into the new season with Rashford, with Garnacho, with Anthony, with Sancho. If he had come at the end of the season, he would have had to give them chance. So we would have been going into the new season with Rashford, which now we don't have to. Now coming in that time, advising or pressuring the manager to come in, these guys, they had a plan. And now we would see the benefit in the next season why the manager came early. And I think Ruben Amorim said it at the end of the season that now he sees the benefit that going to the new season, him and the management team now understand what needs to be done next. Now he has integrated himself into Manchester United. His family has integrated themselves into Manchester United. Now the guy can work properly next season. And for me, I think that is a lot of positive people do not know about. Our last season was crappy, was not good enough. But we would not want the next season to be like that. And the only reason now it would not be like that was the reason that Ruben Amorim came 6 months before he wanted to come. So it is a good thing overall that he came on that time. Now, I was also asked about Manchester United winning the Premier League and this is what he had to say. We have a very clear roadmap of how we are going to get there. Had Ruben started on July 1st, 2025, we wouldn't have been able to have all that knowledge right. And that's what I feel these 7 or 8 months that he has had. He has suffered in the Premier League and the team has suffered. That is why I feel is really going to help us in the future. The fact that the manager came early, it is the major positive we have going into this new season. A lot of people don't see it, but think about it. If the manager had not come when he came, he would have had to come July 1st, 2025. We are not even at July yet. So imagine they would have had to wait for him to come July 1st. So it would have been much harder Because now, if he has not signed for Manchester United yet, so talks would have about the future that cannot take place, or it might be taking place behind doors. But over the past few months, that has been the worst season in Manchester United. The past 6 to 8 months, we have had to suffer. The manager told us before he took the job that we would have to, when he saw the squad and his press conferences, he came out and he told us we had to suffer. And he has not been the one that had to suffer. We fans, we don't suffer. The management team, the Omar Berrada, the Jesse Wick, or the Christopher Vevell, they have all had to suffer because they, being in the team, the pressure is also there with them. So the suffering way all of us don't pass through for this last 6 to 8 months is going to be beneficial going into the new season, because now they have had time to work together in those back rooms. The manager have had time to be angry at Garnacho to the point he cannot stand Garnacho, to be angry at Rashford to the point he couldn't stand Rashford in January, to be angry at Sancho, Anthony, and to know he does not need them going into next season. You're not going to understand how much pleasure the manager, I know the season was terrible, but the amount of pleasure they will be feeling now, I feel so optimistic about the future. Why? Because Ruben Amorim came when he came. Imagine him having to come this new season before. We would have had to go through what we went through in the last 8 months for the rest of the season. He would have probably gotten sacked at some point, because he would have given up on Rashford and Sancho. But now we don't have to deal with them going into the next season. For me, that is already he went for that to say it seems impossible, but why not aim for that? I firmly believe we can achieve it. We have 2 or 3 summer transfer windows to build a team that is starting to be competitive to win the Premier League. Now, I truly believe that 2 or 3 seasons, yes, we can start competing for the Premier League, because you have to be objective thinking, and you have to also look at the squad and see how much surgery we need to do to get to the levels of the Man City, of the Arsenals, of the Liverpool. We are aware of that too. I understand that now we have hit rock bottom and we need to bounce, but we need to also consider reality. And realistically thinking, we are going to need at least 3 summers to get the capacity or the quality of players that are going to take us to the levels of that team. But it's not saying that our squad is going to be depleted next season. No. There's definitely going to be a different team, a team that is going to be able to compete, to be competitive next season. But as for winning the league, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get to that place. Now, it might take earlier than that, but realistically looking at our squad, if you want to diagnose it, you understand it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years to get to that level, to get the Sancho out of the club, the Rashford and the rest, to start getting a first team and a second team like the Arsenals and Liverpool and Manchester City that can be able to go into teams and dominate matches. Currently, we are not there. In order to get to those level, you are going to spend a lot of money, and I don't think it's the kind of money they will be able to spend in one transfer window. So it's going to obviously take 2 to 3 seasons to get us to that level. Lastly, he was asked about signings for this window, how soon the signings are going to come, and this is what he had to say. We are going to do our best to do more signings quickly. Sometimes when you are not quick, it's because you are negotiating and you're trying to make sure you get the right value for money. So being efficient or quick isn't necessarily the best thing for the club. Now, this is for fans, this last one. I know after getting Cunha, everybody wants to see the new signing, but people forget that we have been negotiating for Cunha for quite a while, and yes, it was the release clause they had to pay, but still that was going on for a while, and the people have bashed Manchester United over the past for overpaying. Now there is a clear, good, concise management team that knows what they are doing, and they want to take their time in getting signings in, and now fans are complaining. Of course, there will be a lot of fans that will not be satisfied, that will never be satisfied no matter what happens. You do one thing, they are going to always say the next. But I think they are doing the right thing in this window, because one thing about taking Manchester United to the place we want to be is the place of not overpaying for players. It's the place for getting the right amount for the right players. And if we look at the Anthony's, the Casemiro signing, we will know that has not been our MO for the past few years. So I understand quite rightly, wanting to get the right amount for the right player inside the window. Overall, a lot lot of people like Godrich and the rest were bashing him for this interview, but I thought he was quite being honest and optimistic, as every Manchester United fan should be. I don't think the worst season we had last season, it all passed. We should forget that and move forward. And in order to move forward, we need to trust them to do their job. Now, whether you like them or not, that is secondary to this fact. What we need to do is to trust them. Have they failed us before? No, the Glazers have failed us before. Did they have a spectacular first transfer window? No, they did not, and they had a few weeks to prepare for that, of which you have to be empathetic and understand that even though they are professionals in their job, they still have to take time to settle into their responsibilities respectively. For me, I think this is fair, and what next we need to see now is actions, for which I think we'll see in the next few days, in the next few weeks. Of course, the Mbeumo one is the one we want to see next happen, and I think it's going to happen. Everybody should be patient. In Ineos, I trust, and in Omar Berrada, I trust.